Yeah, I just want to talk to everybody if I can. Um, I've been sitting here this morning trying to figure out how to make the perfect video, and it wasn't gonna work. Um, so I'll just be real. Uh, I've lived with depression my whole life. I started getting abused by my father when I was 3 years old. Um, First memory that my brother told me he has is being held up by my throat about 2 feet off the ground by my father. And that's because I asked him if I could help him cook. I wanted to help him cook. And he turned around, I was annoying him, I guess, and slammed me up against the wall by my throat and then lifted me by my throat. And I remember holding his hand as my feet were dangling. And that didn't end. That went all the way till about I was 12, I guess, is when he really last laid his hands on me. Um, yeah, he used to. One time I talked to a therapist, and she ended up telling my parents everything that I had said. And I guess some things my father didn't like. And because the therapist had betrayed my trust and told my parents what I had said, the moment my mom left the house, my dad ended up dragging me through gravel to the workshop outside of the house. He probably dragged me around 60 feet, and it was by my foot too, and I was hands in the dirt and the gravel as I tried to fight it, and he dragged me into the garage through these big barn doors, and I remember the fear I felt when he closed those doors and threw me on top of the weight bench that we had stored in there, and ended up pulling my pants down and started spanking me as hard as he could. And I remember putting my hands behind to try and cover my butt. And when I did that, he punched me in the back of the head. And I remember going limp and feeling really dizzy as he, I think, gave me a concussion. And he kept continuing spanking my ass for about 3 minutes straight. And he spanked me so many times that I literally had blood wounds on my ass, and I couldn't sit down for probably around, I don't know, 4 days or something. And it was really rough. And we had pigs. He used to smash our pigs with hammers when he would feed them, and made sure I could see that too. You know, just show that force of what he's willing to do to another living being. And I mean, I can still hear the pigs scream when he smashed them with hammers on the snouts because they would come up trying to get the food. And he used to grab my hands all the time and squeeze them, just to prove he was stronger, I guess, and wouldn't stop until I was crying. And then he'd put his knee on my throat when he'd prove he was stronger and wrestle me. And to the point that I was grabbing his knee and can't breathe and getting ready to pass out. And um, spankings were every week, you know, at least 2, 3 times. And he hit me, I don't know, probably 20 times in total. Um, I had ended up, I think I probably have had around 6, 7 concussions in my life, maybe 8. Um, and 4 or 5 of those were before I was even 15. And some of them were from after when I was older. I ended up, when my parents split, I was actually a year ahead in school. And when my parents split, my dad ended up having an affair and cheating on my mom. And I ended up going into a new school, middle school, and um, I got teased really bad. I used to get spat on every day by 6, 7 people, um, and it was just nonstop, both at home and at school. Because when you're going through physical violence at home and you're worn down, you don't really have the energy at school to do anything. And I ended up just not wanting to talk, not wanting to do anything, and didn't get help from anybody. And but because I'd been abused by my father my whole life, I was a lot stronger than most of the kids at that age, but I had no will to defend myself mentally. So anytime somebody like fought me physically, it usually ended pretty quick. And but I literally wouldn't do anything to defend myself against someone doing something verbally to me, and I had no defense for that, and it broke me. And I that's when I really started feeling depression really hard, and it started going down really hard from there. Um, used to come home every day crying, throw a blanket over my head. Used to go out in the woods and like with a bottle of Advil, and I'd just start popping them. And then around like the fifth one, I'd start crying my eyes out and wouldn't be able to go any farther. I was afraid to die. I don't want to die. But I've now lived my entire life from the age of 3 to 35 with depression. And I started like really getting a grasp on it in my 20s and getting a lot better. And I've worked a full-time job ever since I was 16 to like 32 or 30, I guess. And then, sorry, I'm going to be jumping over a little bit here because I'm just jumping all around my life right now. And my memory is bad. I was diagnosed with somatic brain dysfunction or something like that. Um, and I ended up going, after I was teased a lot in middle school, I ended up going to this alternative high school. And I ended up meeting a really good friend of mine named Dan Snook. And one thing that he said to me when we were out, he said, "Why do you let people treat you like shit?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Every time you don't say what you want, you're letting somebody else treat you like shit without them even knowing." And that really connected with me, as well as the first time somebody was ever really nice to me. And how we became friends is he ended up asking if he could go out with one of my girlfriends like my first girlfriend. And I broke up with her because it ended up just not working. But he asked me, and it was the first time in my life somebody had ever asked me what I wanted. And like, and really cared about my feelings. And from that point on, he was my best friend. And I ended up going to parties again because of him. And the people that used to tease me ended up coming at me at the parties. And Dan really forced me to like step up for myself and challenge the bullies that had teased me, and it gave me the strength I needed to like really push on into my adult life. And unfortunately, the day that I ended up beating my bullies and like had a party, and was the day that Dan Snook died. And there's actually what's it called, the foundation in his name, the Dan Snook Foundation. And that was probably one of the hardest moments of my life. I remember just falling down into a big heap and crying. I'd lost the one person that helped me push through my depression originally, and ended up just trucking through life and making my way to Victoria. Started working there, and then I ended up going into the Kootenays and living in there for a bit. And I got really depressed and isolated out there, and felt like I really wanted to like end my life again. And I ended up going and living on an organic vegetable farm really getting down into the dirt and getting back to, using my hands, and that was really good for me. And then I moved back to Victoria, and I thought everything was going good. I ended up getting a job painting, and for the next 5 years, I felt like I was really getting my life together. I was making good money, and I had always asked my boss if we were working with lead paint, and he always told me, no, we're not. That's way older houses, don't worry about it. And I had asked every year if we were working with lead paint. And then this year, uh, I find out that we were working with lead paint, and he was lying to me. And for the last 4 years, I've been having intense stomach pains, and I've had 4 surgeries searching for cancer, colonoscopies, and none of them came back with any trace of cancer, and to the point that the surgeon said he wouldn't do any more. And I was feeling lost. I didn't know what was going on. Um, and then this year, I ended up working on a job site, and the homeowner ended up coming out to me and said, "Hey, have you heard the story of this house?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Well, the house is from the 1800s, but the bottom part was from the 1950s, and the top part is from the 1800s, and they had it moved from down the road." And I said, "Well, what did the lead test say? Because 1800s is pretty old." And she said, "I don't know." So then I asked my boss, "What did the lead test say?" He says, "I'll ask Brad." Comes back 2 days later, says Brad says he's never had a lead test done, and to assume all houses have lead. And I'm like, we're to assume all houses have lead? We've been working 5 years with these houses, and you've told me they always didn't have lead, and now I'm to assume that they all did. And so I ended up going and getting a lead test, and it came back with 0.90 lead level, and I forget the exact term. And then it was the actionable amount by WCB. The minimum actionable amount is 0.97, and then it tells you to go see a doctor at 0.45. And then I read up on blood tests, and they only show up to like 2 months of your lead exposure, and then lead leaves your blood and goes into your bones. And I ended up getting a urine test and checking the amount of lead through chelation. And I went to the doctor, and she told me it was the second highest amount she's ever seen in her life. I have 75 times the amount of lead in my bones than the average human. And the moment I did chelation therapy was the moment I felt like 5 days of no stomach pain in 4 years. Because for those 4 years, I was literally feeling so much pain 3-4 times a week in the morning that I would be incapacitated until 10 or 11 in the morning from 6 in the morning. And going back in there, massive stomach pains, to the point that I was telling people that I applied for jobs when I was taking breaks from the summer painting that I could only do 27 to 30 hours a week because I just couldn't commit to anything more than that. And then I find out that it's from lead. And I'm now, it's weird because like I was told by an ear and throat specialist that I end up getting these ear pains the moment I found out that I was poisoned by lead, and he thinks it's stress. But I've now been living with 6 months of constant ear pain 24 hours a day. It started in my right ear, and now it's moved to my left as well, to the point that I get ear popping 24/7 nonstop. I I wake up in pain. I have to stay up late just so I can get tired enough to go to sleep. I'm now on antidepressants when I swore I'd never go on antidepressants, but at this point I just got to do anything because I just feel like I'm not going to make it. And I was poisoned at work, fired for going to WCB. The moment I told my boss that I was poisoned by lead, the first thing he said to me was, "Do you want to find another job?" And then I made a claim to WCB, and that was the last day I worked, was the day I found out I was poisoned by lead. my boss ended up firing me for going to WCB. He wrote it off as a layoff. Or not as a layoff. He said he fired me as dismissal reason was probation. So I worked with him for 5 years, and he wrote probation because he went on the books a month and a half before this. And so he thought that he could just fire me for probation, like it's a new company. And so I've been fighting that with against that in WCB. And WCB is just like, honestly, the worst company I've ever dealt with. I've literally been told by my case manager, we're not here to help you. And from the moment I've been dealing with them, they've been trying to shut my case down. I'm dealing with so much stress with them. They don't care about people's health. In Canada, you can't sue your employer. So I can't even sue my boss for what he did to me. And I'm getting $230 a week from WCB. 30% of my normal wage is what I get. So I'm not making very much money, barely able to get by. And I'm poisoned. And every moment they're trying to shut my case down, telling me I'm okay. Just because they pulled a retired doctor to tell me that lead dust isn't dangerous and that my blood levels are not too high, so I have nothing to worry about. As if lead doesn't get stored in your body, completely ignoring any links I send to them from the CDC or anything. And this is really what I wanted to show you guys today is this is what I've been dealing with, and this takes a lot of courage to do, but I've been hurting myself ever since I found out I've been poisoned with lead, and I can't stop. I've now got probably over my body 80 plus wounds, like all over my body. I can't stop. I am so depressed and so just like I've tried my whole life to make it work, and I just feel like I'm gonna die soon. And inside the lead, there's also a chance of asbestos. And I begged WCB to take paint samples of some of the houses so I can at least know if I'm gonna die in 10 years from asbestos. And I'm in pain every single day. I feel claustrophobic in my own body because the ear pain's internal. So I literally feel like I'm in the state of a panic attack every moment. I just want to like rip myself out of my own body because I'm in so much pain, and I just really have no clue what to do. And I just felt like I had to share it. And yeah, thanks for listening. I just feel disgusting all the time. I feel like, what's the point? And, I am disgusting. Look at me. Like, I would not be able to even go to the beach without getting a comment. I can't. I tried. There's just, I just feel like there's nothing left for me. Thanks, guys.